Hello, everybody. So for those of you who don't know me, hopefully you do, I'm Yorona Boster, certified speaker and communications coach, life coach, speaker, author, and podcaster. My favorite thing to do is help people communicate with purpose and integrity with themselves and with all those around them. Before our guest introduces herself, I have a request for anyone listening or watching. As this series continues, I'd love to have your input for communication topics that interest you. Communication runs deep, a lot deeper than we think. So I'm going to ask you not to be afraid to stretch the limits of where and how it shapes all of our lives. Please feel free to DM me any ideas, drop them in the comments, or even email them to me at yoronaboster.com. All right. I'm going to have our beautiful guest here, Kay, introduce herself to our audience. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and before we jump into our conversation, please.
Thank you, and thank you very much for having me. I'm Kay Korsh, and I'm a style strategist. I work with speakers and experts, and my background is in working with celebrities and luxury brands. I'm from Ukraine originally. Some people say I sound a bit like a Bond villain. I personally can't hear it. But I'm not the judge of it, I guess. I talk a lot about communicating through your outfit, specifically as a face of the brand, as a business owner, as a speaker from stage and off stage. So I'm sure we have a lot in common and a lot to discuss.
I'm very excited because I think a lot of times people forget that everything we're doing is speaking for us. Whether that's our words, our body language, and all that's entailed behind our body language and vocal varieties and so many pieces, and the physical how we show up. And it's one of the few places in our lives that is actually the most autonomous choice we can make. It's a lot to be said for when you live in a society. There's a lot that you have to make compromises with. When you live in when you have a relationship or a partner, there's a lot of compromise. And compromise is not a dirty word, but it does sometimes mean that there's often times where we don't feel that we can be authentically ourselves. But there's one place where a lot of people really take that sometimes to the next level, which is in what we wear and how we show up. So I think it's really important for us to have this conversation about what meanings, whether they're intended or unintended, that a person's personal style communicates to others, and how that might show up and how that might shape the story that other people construct about us even before they start to process our words as speakers. So I'd love for you to start off that one.
So a lot of people who have to be in front of audiences are afraid of being authentic. They are worried about offending. They're worried about not connecting if they wear what they're comfortable with. And through the work I do, I always try to find that compromise. And we always start with your personal comfort, with what you're comfortable with. Because if you're not comfortable with what you wear, it will show up in your work. So we look at things like what is your physical comfort? What is your emotional comfort? It involves fabrics and fit, and what kind of, is it a stretchy material? Is it something more structured? Do you like expressing yourself through clothes, or do you not really are you not really interested in clothes and you're creative in other ways, but you are not allowing yourself to be that way? And you think, I'm a speaker, I'm a business leader, I have to be memorable, I have to be noticeable, therefore I need to push myself. Well, you don't actually, because you can still be bright and memorable but with a quiet background as your style. It doesn't always have to be something very elaborate. And once you see what that comfort zone is, once you allow yourself and kind of bring it to your consciousness and ask yourself these questions, then you can move on to thinking about your clients, your audience, people who surround you, and how you can connect with them through your outfit. So how can you translate your tone of voice, your expertise into what you wear? And generally, the exercise which anybody can do is think about what sort of expertise you've got, and what sort of tone of voice you've got, and what generally, normally, people within that industry similar to yours normally look like. And write down those things. And for example, giving you a simple example, if you work in AI, you're a futurist, for instance, then wearing something dated is not a good idea, because if you're talking about the future, it's really important that you look current, right? Or if you are an architect, what do architects normally look like? What do they normally wear? And write down different ideas, what it might be, and then see if you can translate it into your outfit. And also it works in different areas. Do you want what your tone of voice is? Are you more playful in how you speak, or are you quite reserved? Do you want to come across as authoritative or approachable? And try to think how to deliver all of that through what you wear.
That makes a lot of sense. And it makes me think of something when you said about dated. I remember growing up as a kid, my mother always, in the 80s, my mother was making us wear the really old clothes. Like we're talking about more like the 70s. Like I had the polyester bell bottoms on when everybody else was wearing the tracksuits and stuff like that. And it's interesting the relationship that we develop as people with our clothing. Because
Yes.
when you think about it, you are developing a relationship, and then you're taking that relationship into a public forum for it to potentially be judged. So it's really important to understand that what you mean to show isn't always what people see. And when I say that, I mean, well, just because you love dated clothes, it doesn't mean that's what's showing up when you're on stage, your love of your dated clothes. It may well mean that people just see you wearing something that's outdated. And that we have to take that into consideration. You love outdated clothes, but how can you modernize that so that other people will see what you want them to see?
I think probably nobody thinks consciously that what they're wearing is dated. They maybe are just not really. They might not be into clothes. They might find it difficult and sentimental to part with their clothes. And there is always, that's why I like working with people down to a deep level rather than just seeing them for a couple of hours, because there is just, as you said, there is just so much to it, and people have so many emotions connected with what they wear. And generally speaking, it could be just that they don't pay attention at the right thing. So pointing themselves in the right direction and noticing what it is that is current now and modern now. And the places where they can find it would be just looking around on the street, or maybe finding celebrities whose style they like, but who also have similar body type. Because it's never helpful if you have a certain body type. Like, for example, if you are tall, to look at petite women, that's not going to make sense, because they would look good in different things. So paying attention at that as well. And so looking on social media, trying to find influencers and celebrities whose style might work for you. That could be a good exercise.
And I like what you said too about the comfort zone. I think sometimes people get stuck in this idea of here's where my comfort zone is. When the reality is if you look at it with exploration and curiosity, you have a greater ability to stretch that than if you look at it as no, this is what I'm comfortable with. That's it. I can't look at anything else. That's gonna just no. I have an opinion of no. I don't like what people are wearing these days. That's not good for me. That's not when you look at it from that mindset, it when we look at it from an exploratory mindset and a curiosity mindset, it shifts the nature of the relationship we have with our comfort zone, of moving the little bit of the bar, like saying, well, I never thought, I bet you hear this a lot. I never thought I could wear something like that.
Yes, in terms of shapes and styles, I definitely agree. And then sometimes, and again, it really depends on the person. It can take a longer or shorter period of time for people to get around the idea. Sometimes it can take months. But also, I work a lot with people on the spectrum. You know, some people who have ADHD, for example, or autism, they might find it difficult to wear certain fabrics or certain fits. And I might say to a client, you look great in high-waisted trousers, but they can't wear high-waisted trousers because it rubs their skin in a way that is not comfortable for them. So it's always about finding that compromise and finding the middle ground where everybody is happy. And it's obviously it's really important for the person to feel comfortable and build over time the wardrobe which they both like, they feel cool in, is comfortable, and then maybe in the future looking at expanding things. But what I would say is that it never get discouraged, and it's a complicated process, and a lot of people hate shopping. I hear this every day. I hate shopping. But there are ways, if you persevere and if you take it step by step, you will come out on the other side. It might be frustrating for months, and then but once it clicks
That's
and you see that light, you know, like I see the light bulb moment in people's eyes when they put something on and they're like, this looks amazing, and I got so many compliments, and then it just builds from that.
it builds from that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, for me, everything I do is I talk about communication, how we're communicating with things. And what I think is very interesting about the clothing that we wear is it falls into the category of in communications, we call it semiotic theory. So semiotic theory is basically about how people make meaning from signs and symbols, and clothing is a sign or a symbol for you. It's about your style actually speaks to people. And I think it's important to understand that there's a lot of what goes into how you're speaking to people has to do with your culture, your experiences, and your assumptions. And, you know, for instance, a red jacket for you could just be a jacket you happen to like, but it also symbolizes boldness, leadership, rebellion, even to your audience. So understanding that, hey, what it's symbolizing to the audience is really important, not just what it symbolizes to you. Somebody wears blue. We hear a lot about how blue can comfort people. It's really funny because I never thought about it, but I love blue. And I love purples and greens. And I think, and here's something maybe you can talk to as far as the communication side of things. When somebody loves all different kinds of styles and flavors, what does that communicate? Or what is it that that communicates about them
If they like lots of different styles,
and
is that
different
what the question?
colors? Yeah.
Yes. So I work with very different people. Some of them don't like, as I said, they don't like clothes. They don't like thinking about clothes. Then it's something simple. And I work with other people who love clothes. One of my clients, Liz O'Riordan, she's amazing. And she's got such a vibrant style. And really, you know, we play around so much, combining patterns and colors, different bright colors together, and different shapes. and that becomes what she is recognized for. And on the other hand, somebody who doesn't like clothes, like another client of mine, Beth Sherman, and my friend, she is, she just wears something very simple and kind of similar, but people also recognize her for that. And you can make that simple, when it's good quality, when it's current, you can actually make it interesting still, even though it's super, super simple. And, it comes through fabrics and things like this. So it's not, I would say, it's not confusing for people when your style is vibrant and very different. It just becomes your trademark.
Ah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Whereas if somebody says, I think you said something before. I want to go back to it for a second. You said before, like, once it clicks, it clicks. And I think that for a lot of people who just don't know what they're doing with their style, the exhausting part of it, the mental exhaustion, it's like, I don't know what to wear. I don't know what to wear, can often go away once they actually do figure out what their style is. And then it's like, I don't
Exactly.
have to think about it. I know I'm going on that stage. I'm speaking to this particular audience. I know that for them, it's really important that maybe they're all leaders. So it's important that I show up as a leader too. I'm going to go with the bold red jacket, for instance, or something like that. Cause you're like, well, that's me. I can do that. Or if you're not a bold color person, well, my black jacket's going to work perfectly well for this audience too. And you're comfortable with that because you've got exactly what choices and who you speak to.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And it's so important that once you allow yourself and once you know what works, so first allow yourself that this is the way you are, and then work from there and try to find the compromise and work out what your shapes and colors are and what your tone of voice is, how to translate it into your outfits and your style. And it, as you said, it takes so much overwhelm out of you
Yes, very
and
much
gives you
so.
so much space for creativity and doing other stuff.
Because you're like, I don't have to think about it. I know what I've got. I've got this, and that'll work for that audience. I think it's good, and let me ask you if I'm correct on this. I think it's good to also think about, who am I going to be presenting to? What is it that they need from me to get what I'm trying to say? Oh, well, if this is an audience who is, you know, their a natural style might feed in better to them because they're your general population of XYZ, maybe their parents or their caregivers or something like that. So something more natural. Okay, that's great. And pairing that with what your style is also, in my opinion anyway, really important, because it's not just your style that speaks for you, but it's also how well you're willing to uh, modify to your audience's needs.
Yes. So when I work with clients, we would sit down. So we would have a call, and they would send me a list of the events for the next week or for the next month. And we would literally go event by event and decide on what the outfit should be. And that's based on the audience, on the background, on the temperature. Um, like, do they have to travel to that place, or how they have to travel? Are they going to be sitting down or standing up? That's another really important part. How are they going to be in front of the audience? Is it a panel or is it a keynote?
Right. Oh man, you just reminded me of when I went to India. It
What
was a
happened?
really well, I was so lost on what to wear. I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm respectful. I want to make sure that I'm, respecting and appreciating their culture, and also I know how hot it's going to be. So I had a lot of thought process to go into what I wanted to wear, and it was really funny because the day that we spoke, we had gotten up super early to do meditative practices at the ashram, and then we went through a whole slew of different things. So there were different outfits that I changed to based on the different activities. But I do still remember that I am so glad while I'm happy with what the outfit looked like, the material was really thick, and I was so hot at the end by the end of that very long evening that I'm like, "Oh boy, I am so sweaty." And I was like
Yeah.
adding things away. So it's interesting to have to consider also the literal environment you're going to be speaking in.
Yes.
Because if you're in a space that's going to be really hot, or if you're in a space that's really cold, you're not going to wear a strapless dress and stand there, speaking for hours and just freezing temperatures, or vice versa, right? And I think it's really interesting to go through that and to realize, okay, what do I need to how do I show up as me, but ensure that I'm also showing up for the environment too.
Yes. And I think also keeping in mind that we are all humans and we can prepare, you know, there is a list of things of how to prepare, but also kind of letting go. And if you make a mistake,
Mhm. Yeah.
sometimes things, like you misjudged the temperature, and you
Mhm.
maybe you might think, what normally I suggest is to talk to the event organizers and ask them definitely about the background, but also about the temperature. Like, is it going to be air conditioned? Is it going to be heavily air conditioned?
Right.
I spoke to
Right.
somebody yesterday, and she said she had heels on, but I think there was a carpet where she was speaking, and she was really wobbly on the
Ah.
carpet, which she didn't anticipate. So there are just so many things to think about.
Right. Right. That's really important is, your comfort level, but also what's realistic for the space and
Yeah.
and place that you're going to as well. If you're going to be standing all day long, you're probably going to want some comfortable footwear. So,
Yes.
it is so incredible how our styles, what they speak to other people. Um, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on, maintaining some kind of measure of consistency when it comes to if you're regularly in the public eye, is it better to maintain consistency with your style, or is it better to shake things up a little bit to do something a little bit different?
Definitely, consistency is key. So, and as I said, if you do have a vibrant style where you're wearing lots of different prints, colors, and shapes, that
Right,
still is consistency over time, right? People expect that from you.
right.
But if you jump from one thing to completely different thing, that might be confusing. So, I would definitely recommend to find a style, be consistent. Obviously, that will still shift, but just not very often.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So, it is very interesting to to the way I see it, it's very interesting that a lot of people really struggle with this, and I am curious, why do you think that is? Why do you think it is that people struggle with their own styles?
Because we're all experts in different fields and we have different skills. And when, as you know, you're an expert in your area, people hire you to help them. So I think that's how it should work. I've got some help. I've got a finance coach, a business coach, So areas which I am not strong in or which I want to get better at, it's definitely worth having some help with. And you can't be good at everything. And I think people struggle with it, and they get maybe into like a cycle of negative thinking, because it's also connected with what we think about the way, how do we look, what we were
Right.
told as a child, um,
Mm,
and our upbringing and our relationship with clothes. So it's a combination of emotions and practicalities, I would say. And every single person has that. My husband said the other day to me, I hate clothes. Why? Uh, how do you work? Like, why do you love clothes? Like, how do you work with clothes? But he said it because he just by accident put a stain on a shirt, and then we had to quickly try to get rid of the shirt. I don't like clothes for the reason of being them being stained. That's not the reason why I like clothes, but it's just for him because he is not, that's not his area, and he doesn't
Mm,
necessarily think about clothes. For him,
right.
it's all kind of got muddled up in this ball of emotion right in that moment. But if you unpick it, it's just generalization, right, and catastrophizing. If we're talking about CBT,
Right.
and it's just always kind of stepping away and thinking about yourself in the third person, and say, what do I like about Kay? What is one piece of Kay's body which I like? Is it
Right.
Kay's hair? I don't know. Uh, and there are a couple of things why it's helpful. Is first of all, you're kind of, again, you are not so much wound up in this cycle. You're kind of trying to look at it from the side, but also breaking it down and looking at it rather than
Yeah.
overall. I'm fat and never nothing ever works for me. You kind of
Mm,
trying to unpick what, like breaking yourself into different things, right? And it's always
uh,
the same as with your personalities. So I think when I look at somebody, or when I talk to myself or to my daughter, I take my image as part of my personality. And there is always going to be a list of things which we prefer and the list of things which we don't like. Some of those we can work on if we embrace a growth mindset. Okay, I don't know, I think my hair is thinning. There are probably things I can do about it. I'm going through perimenopause, my hair started thinning, right? So there
yep.
are things out there you can research on Google and ChatGPT.
Right.
What are those things which I can do to make my hair thicker? Maybe it's worth exploring. Maybe maybe it's impossible, but I might try. Or I don't know, other things when I was little, I had my calves naturally were quite thin, and my mom always brings this up, how she remembers I was always really stubborn, or motivated about things. So I was like, oh, okay, my calves are thin, I want them to be a bit wider. So I started doing exercises, kind of standing up
Yep.
and down, and it did result in my calves being slightly wider. So there are things which we can do
Right.
with our image, and that also works with the clothes, with the hair, with the makeup. So thinking about clothes and image as a tool to help you in your business
Mm,
is a much more
yes.
helpful way, rather than just oh, I don't like clothes, that's it.
Right. Right. Because one way is like picking on you. The other way is like saying, okay, how can this enhance my skill set?
Exactly.
I think
Yes.
that's really key. I love what you said though about support. I think in the way I see the world, we can't do it alone. Everybody needs support. And you're right. Every single one of us is really good at something, but we can't be good at everything. So whether that's your communication skills, your clothing, your styling, your whatever that may be, having the support and help from somebody else can help also give us the outside perspective that we need, that sometimes it's really hard to hold internally. Because if I look at myself in the mirror and I say, "Oh my God, I do not like the way this fits. Ugh, oh, I look so fat," or "Oh, I look so XYZ," or really, could that be any sillier looking or something like that. I'm immediately going to that negative thinking space. I'm immediately going into that, like, I'm going to look at my image and I'm going to pick apart the thing I don't like. And what you're saying is this is about internal communication as well. Look at your image and say, what do I do like? What do I like?
Yeah.
Let me look at this and say, oh, I really like the way that fit falls on my shoulders. I really like the way that, that color brings out my skin tone. I really like XYZ. When we focus on that, then we can start to design what our style could look like. And that
Exactly.
has a lot to do with how we speak to ourselves. So to
Yeah.
me, it all comes back to communication, whether it's the external communication of what our style is speaking to other people, or whether it's the internal communication of how we want to see our own style show up in the world. I think that's really important. And it doesn't work so well when we try to do it completely on our own, because on
No.
our own, we have a tendency to pick ourselves apart more than build ourselves up. So, well, this is really good. I hope this is going to be very helpful for people to start to understand that there is a depth to your styling that's so much more than just what you look like. It's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And I hope people will really understand where we're coming from with this. It's so much deeper than the surface level. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to play with. Get curious with, play with your clothing, play with the opportunity to play. And if you don't have that much opportunity to play, I mean, I don't know about other people, but there's thrift stores, at least you have an opportunity to go and try things out and see
Yeah.
what works and what doesn't. Because I know a lot of people who are like, I don't have the time, money, or energy to spend on my style. I'm just going to put myself in a black jacket and black trousers and be done with it. And that's sad because it could be a really beautiful tool to enhance yourself for your audience.
Yes, I always encourage people to just go to big department stores without the idea of buying something and just trying on different
Exactly.
styles and trying and take pictures of themselves and try to gauge what it is, what works, why does this work better than the other thing, the neckline, the shoulder, and so
Right.
on, the length.
The feel, how it feels on your body, those types of things.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share for our audience?
Um, Yeah, I think kind of expanding on this last point of not being afraid of that it's any sort of commitment and just be try to be more playful and don't set yourself a goal of buying something, but just trying things on. I think that would be probably a good final thought.
I love that. All right, I'm going to leave us with this as well. I would say that understanding how your style communicates nonverbally is really important because audiences are making judgments before you've spoken a word. And if you know how your signals are being read, then you can decide whether they align with the message that you actually want to share or whether they're pulling people in a direction that you don't intend. I'm going to leave it at that, and I hope everybody enjoyed this. And please feel free to comment, send messages, message Kay. She's wonderful. I'm going to highly recommend her to anybody who's looking for somebody who's a great stylist for speakers. And on that note, we'll see you.